Blessings. This is Oracle, welcoming you into the Three Treasure Tea Talk today. Enjoy this podcast brought to you by Nico and Friends.
This
I
is
mean,
the
it's
wood
just,
dragon year. So like, I mean, we're talking to each other, but we are talking because we are, trying to connect to the world, to our communities. I live in Oakland, you live in Portland. Like hopefully
yeah,
in our little tiny communities that are both tiny, like
yeah,
radical areas,
yeah, yeah,
as listeners, think about what you want to contribute. Like this is probably a lot to listen to because it's real, it's truth, and it also there is a call to action because we need more hands. Like on a spiritual level, we need more hands. And yes, you need to
yeah,
survive in capitalism and pay your rent and cook. And
yeah, all
I
that.
all that is so hard. Doing laundry is so
Yeah,
hard.
it sucks.
It sucks. And it's like, but if we can really having children so fucking hard, but if we can really get to a point of helping each other, like really, and if you can do it in a tiny little way, if
Yeah,
you can come to the bottoms up garden and plant something or come to the Sundays, like that would be an entryway to get in right relationship because when you hear all this, it can be so overwhelming. What do I do? I'm
of
so
course.
addicted. Yes, like don't fall into the shame trap.
Yeah,
That's not what we're talking about. That's not decolonize. We're
yeah, that's
talking
not.
about how you, as listeners, can think about what you can contribute into this like new world,
Yeah,
essentially, that we're like wanting to move towards that's
yeah,
decolonized. And in Chinese medicine, it's a like a reawakening of the Huangdi Neijing because that was written I think like in 200s, like hella long ago, but they were saying the exact same thing that we're saying today in 2024, which was how come back in the day everyone was so much happier and in harmony, and now we're not. And then Huang Dinijing was just the book was just like be in tune with the seasons, like what we're
yeah,
talking about.
totally. It's
So
just
it's
the
like
same shit.
people, but that
Yeah,
was so long ago, and we can say,
yeah,
oh, back
yeah,
in 200 people were happy, they were, and so
yeah,
there's a I don't know, like it's like a spiritual evolution that we are doing, I think. And so, but it's like these are probably not the right words to be using, but like
no,
just go like plant a tree, like get connected, like you're saying, it's super simple, but in the big picture, this is like huge thousands of years of work, thousands upon
no.
thousands.
So many ancestors. Like, I think we have to understand that. Like, I mean, because if you, what you're saying is true. Like, if you read the Tao Te Ching, they're basically saying we fucked up. Like, if you really read the Tao Te Ching from a decolonial lens, they're basically saying we fucked up, fam.
Yeah,
They, the ancestors knew what was going on, and we don't. They
right.
were saying this nation state stuff, this hyper agricultural army building shit. It's not really the way of nature. They were saying that, but it's hidden. It's a little bit hidden because they were they were basically dissidents, right? It's like we have to understand that in the same way that we are fighting fascists now, fascist governments, they're also fighting fascist governments. Like, it has not really changed in about 2,000, 4,000 years. It has not changed
Uh,
much. It's still a kind of feudalism based on this idea of shaman kings who are like god king people. It's really scary when you think about it. It's like we shouldn't put the Chinese up on a pedestal, is all I'm saying.
uh-huh.
What we should do, though, is look at nature and find what is natural. Like, that's really the basis. And what seems to be natural in terms of psycho emotional spiritual health, which includes your thoughts, your narratives, the voices in your head, the feelings and the emotions in your heart and organs, the sensations in your body, the Kundalini energy, or Federico Garcia Lorca called it duende. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. It's earth energy rising up the spine. It's the same thing. Um, we can see patterns of nature, animism. So I think what we're kind of doing, at least I think I'm part of a movement of sort of maybe neo-animist revival. It's not about going back to superstition. It's about having the kind of perception that is flexible enough to know when rationality is lying to us.
Ooh.
Do you see what I'm saying? To know when we're defending ourselves from reality by saying we're rational, logical creatures. Rationality is good in certain specific circumstances in your life. Like rationality is good when you're like, I need to analyze this data in a very particular way to make sure my biases don't fuck me up. That's good rationality. But if you're using rationality to say that spirits don't exist and it's just imagination, and we know what imagination is, but we don't, right? Like we're going to pretend we know what imagination and dreams are. We're going to pretend we know what happens when we sleep.
Right.
This is the toxic side of rationality because even the newest neuroscience called network neuroscience
So
is
that,
essentially starting to prove animism, anabuddhism, and non-duality. It's
yes.
starting to prove it slowly, but it's starting to say all this stuff about the three-part brain that we thought we had, it doesn't exist. There's just rhizomatic networks that are all talking to each other
It's
and
a mushroom.
and creating different, literally different perceptions of reality at the same time.
Wow. So it's like choose your own adventure. The way they're seeing your brain is like
So what's interesting is here's the interesting thing too. You know, we talk about the five organs and the five spirits in Chinese medicine,
yeah.
and Ming talked about the five eyes in the dream class, which is another whole weird topic.
Yeah.
There's five networks in the brain,
Like the
and
limbic
each
system, that is that like that
no,
way?
they're different. They're called different things because we're talking about like rhizomatic networks that are stacked and intertwined on top of each other in this kind of like beautiful, you
Ooh,
know, organism thing.
yeah.
So the point I'm trying to make though is that each one of those networks literally perceives reality differently, which means just like what we said before, you're the combination of five spirits. You're the combination of five perceptions. And if those perceptions are in a supremacist hierarchy, you're fucked.
Okay. Now I have to bring it back full circle to not a protocol acupuncture
Hmm.
because it the full circle, that's like the beauty of it. What you're saying is absolutely right. We do have these five spirits, and because everyone wants to know which is the one that it, because there's five. Who do I
Yeah.
So the one,
Yeah.
let me give you the one right now, the one that you want to focus on, especially if you're addicted, if you're angry, if you're being oppressive to people. It is called the Hun, Hun. It is the liver spirit. And when I did the talk yesterday with Dr. Morris, and he talked about how he's worked with people detoxing for years, he said they come in really angry, really upset. They don't want to be here. They're irritable. This is all liver. This is the Hun spirit, and there's a point right across from your tragus, right before the antihelix, that's for the liver. You press it, it's gonna hurt. And so we need the liver is the oppressor in our little party. So let's look at the fucking liver. Like, let's all look at our livers. Essentially all Chinese medicine, you can prescribe Xiao Yao San, which is free and easy wandering, to fucking everyone. I didn't need to go to school for 7 years to just prescribe Xiao Yao San,
No,
and that
because
would
we're
be,
all fucking oppressed and angry.
we are, and we do it to ourselves, like you say, or to others. And who goes out to dream in this worldview? It's the liver spirit that leaves our body every night to go explore. The liver is the wood. This year is a wood dragon year. So this year is for the Hun. The Hun is the explorer. It is the inspiration. It is youthful. So the Hun doesn't want to be angry. The Hun wants to be a free and easy wanderer. It wants to be able to go out to sleep, or like it wants you to be able to fucking sleep so it can go. And if you're so
Yes.
depressed that your blood is so thick that your Hun is so sticky, I mean, your blood is so sticky that your Hun can't escape, that's going to make you upset and fucking angry because your Hun wants to go
That's right.
Ride in the night and then come back and be happy and then tell all the other spirits what it did.
That's right.
Everyone wants to
Right.
know, like, the hun
That's
is the best
right.
one. And so get your huns right. Like, get your liver. And
No,
what you
it's
can do, you
yeah.
can just slap your ribs. The number one symptom for liver stagnation is rib side distension. Just
Yeah.
fucking slap your ribs and then massage them and
Yep.
like spin around, like basic ass shit to breathe, right? Breath is the number one medicine. So these are
Yeah.
tools that you can have for free. This podcast is free, and the point is for you to help yourself. Like, I'm a doctor, you're a teacher, and we're just two people. Like, we don't have time to talk to
Yeah.
everyone. Like, there's a
Yeah. Yeah.
whole
Yeah.
long line of people
It's
that
true.
need this
Right.
medicine. And so I'm trying to be efficient by doing this and broadcasting it to be like, y'all do your own research. I'm gonna link stuff for people to do their own stuff. And maybe this will turn into a school. I really hope that not, because I don't got the resource. I want to do other stuff, but I really think that everyone can benefit from this knowledge, from this worldview. And like, I am so grateful for you to have the container and the structure, because that's everything I don't have. Like, the most container I have is this Zoom call and
Yeah.
trying to create something, and I can package it out to the public. But
Yeah.
like, that's how you get, I mean, that's how it's going to get to people. It's
Yeah.
because you have been able to synthesize, and I've been able to access you, and we're all
Yeah.
interrelated. So as you're listening to this in this moment, like, y'all should have goosebumps right now, because it means, yes, like, your ancestors are asking you to step forward.
Yeah, it's a collectivist dream that's happening. And I think what people have to understand is this cult of celebrity is a big problem, especially in the somatic healing therapy world. Like the cult of individualism is such a problem. The cult of celebrity is such a problem. And with that, I mean, I know we're probably reaching the end of the talk, but I want to give a free structure because I
Yeah.
think people need to understand what they can do on their own in order to because you need a daily practice. You can't get away from having some kind of daily hygiene practice. And so this I would consider a daily hygiene practice for your hun when it's not sleeping. Okay,
Mhm.
so let's just talk about it from that perspective.
Great.
Because your sleep might be all fucked up, like what we need to do is in some way dream when we're awake. But we
Mm.
have to do that very specifically. So let me break it down for you. The only thing you technically need for this is a timer that will has a alarm that will audibly go off at the end of the timer. And I say that because just trust me on this. You need a fucking timer that beeps. You have to have one. So you would set a timer for some period of time, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. The longer it goes, the weirder it gets. So just start at like 7 minutes and move up slowly. Okay. Don't be so hard on yourself. It's okay to oscillate. You don't have to jump all the way into the deep end. That's crazy.
Mhm.
We want a gradual awakening, right?
Mhm. 30% of your effort, maybe.
Yeah, just notice. So you're going to start a timer and you're going to do what I call the magic circle practice. It's via your intention. Once that timer starts, you're in the magic circle. You can do a number of things. You can enter it like you're stepping through an invisible doorway and into an invisible or magical circle that you imagine. You can do whatever you want. The point is that for that, let's say 7 minutes, for that 7 minutes, you get to allow your body to express itself however it wants. But here's some caveats. You must practice something called ecstatic restraint, which is restraint that is ecstatic. And the reason I say this is because people will generally go into catharsis and just start screaming or feeling bad because their body has a lot of pent up, blocked things that they have not allowed themselves to feel. And so now we're giving you the special ritual container to feel it, and the body starts to go, holy shit. I need to channel my ancestors. And suddenly it's too much. It's too much
Yeah.
too fast. However, we can't keep pretending that the human being can't do this stuff and needs to have some kind of magical transmission to be able to do it. That's also part of the supremacy problem. You don't need permission, but you need skills. You need behavioral adjustments.
Mhm.
So you have to be in charge of that. So, what I would say, you enter this magic circle, and I would say you can put on some drumming music or you can do it silently, but just start doing slow movements. Slow, maybe you yawn a bunch of times and you're just noticing because you don't want to stare at the timer. It's going to go off. That's why you set it and forget it. You're like, it's going to protect me. It'll go off in 7 minutes. And you start moving slowly and you just start feeling what you want to feel. If you have massage training or any other kind of training, your body will start to naturally start to do some kind of hygiene on yourself. You'll start to press points, you'll start to stretch, but it won't be like yoga. It'll be organic like a cat.
Yes.
If you that slapping the liver thing, you might just naturally be like that feels really good.
Yes.
So you're giving yourself this time where you're kind of unstructured, but you're allowing the Hun to essentially expand.
Mhm.
And as it starts to expand, you'll have maybe dreams, visions while you're awake. You might hear songs or you might hear voices. You might feel feelings. The point is not to go, ooh, the point at this point in the practice, you're just moving. You're making sure that you're not getting into frozen states. You have to keep kind of breathing and moving like a snake. You can lay down on the ground, you can curl up, but basically you're kind of unwinding and winding, right? You're kind of pendiculating, but you're using your attention to allow the body and all of its many spirits to kind of start to talk
Yeah.
like a dream, like you're having a fucking dream. It's awake and you're like, oh shit, there's shit talking to me. I don't like it, but if you do this every day, things start to work themselves out. Because these five spirits, if you're addicted in some way, you're codependent, you're traumatized, you're going to have a lot of relational backlog between the spirits.
Yeah.
And not just between the spirits, between ancestors too.
Yeah.
So you're giving yourself a small container every day, maybe multiple times a day, where you start releasing the gas from the pressure cooker. Because that's the pressure that's been built up and it's starting to fuck you up a bit. Like your soul is like a bit fragmented, it's too hot. So
Mhm.
every day in this magic circle, you're just kind of letting go of some steam. Maybe you're singing. Like a really good practice is to do like scat singing from jazz. You don't even have to use words, but you can. You can say prayers. What I do in these practices is I tend to do pai da, right? I slap myself, but I
Yeah.
pray at the same time.
Yeah.
And I just allow my system to play with energy and not have any grudges about what it might mean. I don't take this stuff and go, oh, that means I have to. No, no, no. If I get information from these sessions, that's what I take into divination
Mhm.
because then I'll do another process after that timer goes off where then I say, I got some information. I want to verify it with the I Ching. I'll
Yeah.
throw the coins. So you have these processes to not go crazy.
Right. Don't go.
But
Well, we're not gonna make people crazy because that's
no,
already
it's just
happening. We're gonna help them channel their own
you're
energy.
basically learning to become possessed by your own spirits first.
Right. Which you get familiar. Like those are your for this lifetime. Get to know your people. Your
That's
city.
right. And
Your
then for some people, here's the unfortunate or fortunate part, whatever you want to talk about it. It's the uneven fate part. For some people, they will realize or discover that they have a tendency to channel other spirits that are not their five spirits.
uh,
And that's when you might need extra prayers, spiritual baths, limpias, egg cleansing,
yeah.
like real good folk healing shit that like actually prayers, ritual cord cutting ceremonies, all sorts of shit, right? I can't go into it all right now because it's just a lot. But
Ah,
you might notice, oh, I'm constantly getting possessed by this part of my lineage, and they're really
that part.
angry, or they have a disorder and it's affecting me. And that's where I need to maybe get specialized help, or I need to just in the practice, I say to them, you know, you can be free now. Like, I mean, on some level, you have the permission to liberate your own ancestors. I mean, that's the crazy part about this is you don't really need a priest, but you do need the skill and the will in order to focus your energy to the point where you really believe that can happen,
Oof.
that your ancestors actually don't need to be ghosts anymore, and that you can, bow to them and say you're finished.
Oh
Like
my
you can
God.
do all this stuff, right?
That's huge. That's
But
huge.
the
You can do it
structure,
yourself.
the structure that is necessary must be something that you can do anytime. Immediacy is important because unfortunately we live in a world of scarcity where people believe they need to pay hundreds, thousands of dollars to go to a ceremony in Peru or something to get this work done. And while I don't think that that's wrong, I think that there's no actual reason why human beings can't all become skilled to a certain level and start to do this stuff on their own.
Yeah.
Like the basics actually need to be spread to all the people, and then of course we'll have specialists because that's just human beings. Human beings always specialize.
Well, it
But
seems
we're at a
easier, yeah, to integrate when you're not trying to do crazy stuff hella far away across the world. Like, why don't
it's too
you
hard.
do it where your environment is? Because then that's the integration. Like you're shortening the integration period. Even the
Yes.
travel back home or whatever, if you went on your little Peruvian
Yeah.
shaman, like you don't need to do that. You can have an experience in your own environment, and then that would be more impactful and it wouldn't be so
Yeah.
egoic either.
Yeah, and also because you need to understand that this stuff I'm actually telling people, this is the stuff we all should have been taught for free as children, but we weren't. And so someone like me who's doing ancestral rituals and divinations to try to get this information back is now giving it as much as I can because it's not actually mine, but I have remixed it for the modern age based on trauma sciences. That's all I've done is
Oof.
I've looked at how people go into catharsis and re-traumatize themselves because they can't, their nervous system doesn't know how to manage intensity. And the reason I said ecstatic restraint is because it's the best way I've currently found to learn how to manage intensity. Because if we call people restraint, they might constrict instead of restrain.
Uh, Constrict, that's also the Po. That's the metal.
So what instead I tell them is go, think of jazz. And this is where I learned it from. I learned it from watching black jazz artists. They are practicing a kind of restraint. Like they're not just all playing at the same time like assholes, right? They're taking turns, they're listening to each other, which requires restraint. But their restraint is so joyful because they're in a collective to create the music together. They're going, oh, I can just add some. Ooh, now I'm going to be quiet now and let the trumpet player have the solo. That's ecstatic restraint.
Ooh.
In a group ensemble, may be easier to learn this. However, what we said before in this very podcast is very important. You are already a group ensemble. So
Ooh.
when you go into this magic circle, you can also think of it like the five spirits learning to play jazz together.
Yeah. The liver can stop bullying the earth for his lunch money, and then your stomach isn't going to hurt when you're anxious and you can eat in the morning.
And they're learning to do it in a playful way. This is the other key point about this is that too often these spiritual hygiene practices are super serious. They're all very serious and life or death kind of, what we need is a playtime.
Yeah.
So if we can go and play our jazz, write our poetry, be goofy clowns, say gibberish, make up fake songs and dirty limericks, like have a fun time, but we're doing it with this structural integrity of the ritual container and all the things I've talked about. You're learning to get these spirits to coexist in a better way. You're saying, I know you all have different traumas, but we're going to play some jazz. We're going to do some dirty blues, like we can really look to the Black diaspora for a lot of help and inspiration because they created art forms based in pain and trauma that now everyone uses for pleasure.
Yeah.
Think about that.
Yes.
Think about they created blues and jazz and rock and roll from their fucking trauma and
In
gave
this
it to the
country.
world.
Yeah, this country gave it to the world. Like that, like that's the part too, like all the different narratives and
Yes, and so part of it is that I want to bring in the historical of like this isn't just about Chinese cosmology or Tibetan cosmology or even like Hindu or Indian, cosmology. This is about all animist people of the world find a way to transform their trauma into gifts for people.
yeah.
And that's what the Black diaspora did. That's what the Puerto Rican and Caribbean diaspora did. When they all were traumatized together, they came together and they created ritual art forms that helped them deal with their trauma and help other people deal with their trauma too. So now we have things like Afro-Caribbean music and Africa, we have all this stuff where it's not the same. It's like we have jazz and rock and roll and blues and 50, we have to understand that this is the patterning of actually how to heal trauma is not about curing in a certain sense.
Mhm.
It's about transforming energy from like its unexalted state to its exalted state. You
Yes.
take your pain and you use it ritually and it becomes exalted energy.
Mhm.
This is the key to how we so-called heal traumas. It's not really the way that white colonists are talking about healing trauma.
Well, you
It's
need
about
pain as a recipe. You need the
it's
ingredient.
part
That's the
of
ingredient
the
is
it's
pain.
part of the initiation process in ritual is
Wow.
discomfort, pain, hunger, fear, right? These nasty feelings that we think are feelings. And then to just sum it all up, once we get with our five spirits and then with those big spirits, I call them wisdom guardians, pain, fear, and hunger. We work with those wisdom teachers, pain, fear, and hunger. And for me, that's sort of the gateway to the non-dual death experience. Like when all of these traditions talk about dying in a good way and
Yeah.
dying into the rainbow body and all that stuff, for me, this is what I've experienced as a pathway. Those pathways are also correct. It's just the way I talk about it. Is
Yeah.
that from the spirits in the body, moving and working with pain, fear, and hunger as wisdom forces in a playful way. It's very hard, but it can be done. Satire, grotesque clowning, dark comedy, all sorts of stuff. From that, we transmute the energies of sort of like the base ego into something that could actually let go of itself when it dies. And we want to let go because letting go is liberation. It's actually peace. We don't want to hold on to grudges and all this other shit.
Yeah.
But while we're here, we want to be generous, right? We want to be generous. So I've just laid out a roadmap, and obviously there's so many details, and every person's going to have their own trajectory. But in the most succinct way possible, I tried to lay it out for people. It's like you have to have this structural process that actually leads you towards managing more intensity better and letting go eventually.
Mhm.
Because that's the whole thing. It's like a kind of self-negation into the emptiness of the sky, right? It's not a problem. The sky isn't a problem, but it's empty space.
Yeah.
And it holds everything. So kind of it's the way, it's kind of the way to go, right? So eventually these five spirits that we have will return to this empty space. And
Mm.
that soul, that experience of the soul will have its own final dream process, right? And that's what we're trying to sort of be ready for.
You
I
want it to
guess.
be a not a good dream and not a nightmare. The big one, right? The one where it counts. It's like we're all in school and then that's like the big test that we're like prepping for. Like every night you go to bed is like a mini prep for death, like how
It's a
good.
mini prep.
And you get to try every day and then the one, don't fuck it up, y'all. I mean, you can, right? Like you have so many opportunities,
Yeah.
but like
Yeah.
let's try. Like I'm a good student, like I want to get it right. Like as much as I don't want to try to do anything,
Right.
I
But
value
if we
time
couch this
well.
stuff, see, it's like the interesting thing about play and being an artist is that to be an artist and to play inside of your art, you actually need to become very um, strong in your practices. You need to build your skills. And it should feel good to build your skills because it's fun to play in your practice. So I think a lot of the health stuff we're dealing with today is that people have lost their ability to play because they're so stressed out. And part of my art form here that I've, laid out for y'all is that we have to return play to the very stressful process of healing. We
Mm.
have to return it back.
It's the
And
same. It's the liver. The liver gets stressed, but it's the liver that is wants to play. It's the hun. The hun
yeah,
is the child. You can't ever take it that serious. It's a child. So it's like
yeah,
you're not gonna yell at a child, but things get
right.
real hairy and
That's right. That's right.
stressed
Yeah,
out.
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
and so, it's also like we have to take the long view. It's like your life is a beautiful story, and we have to encounter that story. It's not even necessarily about being the author of the story, it's about encountering the relationality of that unfolding process called your life and your death and your sleep and your awakeness, right? It's like the dream of everything. The dream of waking life and the dream of sleeping life and the dream of life and the dream of death and the dream of birth. They're all just variations on this dream. And so we're encountering this unfolding play. It's literally a play of light, right? It's a play of light. It's a magic dance of the elements. And so when we can join that magic dance is when we feel fulfilled. Just like the old rituals where some people are wearing the masks and becoming possessed, but everyone around the circle is also part of the ritual. They're
Hmm.
drumming or they're reacting, and that's all part of the ritual. So it's joining that magic dance that makes us feel alive again. We're actually using our pain as a prayer and as a collective transformation of a group process or a group issue.
Hmm.
And that's when we really feel the true fulfillment of the human species, right? It's like we when we're singing and dancing together for a functional ritual purpose, right? Praying for people, healing people, just allowing the energy to move so that we don't feel stuck anymore. Those are all ritual medical processes. And in this day and age, we're just kind of doing them randomly at nightclubs and stuff,
Exactly.
right?
With sketchy people that are drunk and who knows what.
Totally. Because, but because we want that feeling so bad,
Uh-huh.
we are willing to do it in less than hygienic ritual
Right.
circumstances. And all I'm saying is we're not going to stop probably doing that because people need it. But the more people I can sort of train to be able to do this stuff first for themselves and then for others, to actually understand the building blocks of ritual that is not religious and is playful, the
Yeah.
more we can start to bring it into everyday life and go, oh, we're missing this. We need to do a circle and let's just hum for 2 minutes. It
Yeah.
can be very simple. It could be very complex. The point is we first need to be able to see it as a living possibility that
Yes.
is not gate kept from us.
Right.
So
That you
this is the
can
thing.
afford, like accessible.
This is the accessibility issue. And so part of the accessibility is not just money, it's skill and education.
Yeah.
And just like what you're trying to do is like, let's educate people on just some basics of TCM, and we suddenly we uplift everybody.
Right.
It's like, like just some basics. just some basics. And all I'm saying is that there are ritual basics, but the thing that I seem to have locked in on is this particular combination of being able to play with the things you don't like.
Yeah.
And that's why I call it
Uh,
death clown. That's
uh-huh.
why I call it death clown, because all this basic preparation stuff is just to get you kind of feel good with honesty and improvisation and ecstatic restraint and all this stuff. But then it gets much more interesting, satirical, and weird. But you can get really weird when you're hygienic. That's the other thing, is like once you built up enough chi and the hun is not being oppressed and all this other stuff, you could actually go into really interesting forms of trance that are playful, but they also have sort of maybe more artistic or creative functions in society, right?
Beautiful.
So there's ritual, and then there's the ritual we call performance, which is
Uh-huh.
slightly different. And so it's all in this ecosystem. Not everybody who does this work is going to become a performer, but I'm just saying that's where it kind of can go, or it comes from, is this ability to be an intermediary for the people
Yes.
on purpose, to be like, I choose this performance, I will channel these beings
Right. This
for
is
the
my
benefit of,
role.
this is my role for this time. And then when I de-roll myself, right? I mean, all this stuff, people learn it from
On the
BDSM too,
Excel
right?
spreadsheet, you just sign up for what you're gonna bring.
That's right. And you have an onboarding and an offboarding hygiene, ritual hygiene process, so that you can feel all those feelings and really perform the role, right? You really do the role, like you really do it, and then you let it go.
Yeah.
You don't have to keep it, because that keeping it is also feeding the ego problem and the individual problem. We learn to do this, and then we go, and it was for all the ancestors. It was for the ghosts. It was
For the
for the
resolving.
demons.
Yeah.
It was for all the people, not just the living people, but it was
Right.
for the earth. And that's also missing from a lot of entertainment, is that we're doing it for ourselves and each other, but we're missing out on all this
And
other stuff that we need to do it for ancestors and stuff.
well, Sean and Zook or Scott, I don't know how you know him,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah,
he
yeah,
talks about us being the living live ends of a rope that's like the
yeah,
10,000. So we're just,
yeah,
that's the best analogy of like,
totally.
how are you gonna have an individual, like you're just the tip, the frayed end of a long ass rope. Like you
Yeah,
said, this is the problem. We have an individualist problem.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And once we learn to have skill with playing with that rope that we are, it becomes a lot less precious too. And then what you're doing has a context. And we as a people, we desperately need context that is accurate. And that's part of the issue we're dealing with, is like, we're disposing of people, we're decontextualizing people from their cultures, right? Like that's the process of colonization, is a decontextualization. And to
Losing their ritual.
decolonize, to decolonize is to recontextualize. So, like it's just,
Ritual. Remember.
yeah, totally.
Remember.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so that's my sort of soul work. That's my sort of thesis project of my
And
life, which
are
is,
you inviting people to this? Like, do you want more people to join in what you're doing?
yeah, absolutely. I think what I'm trying to do right now, like currently right now, is I like training people is possibly the best way to transmit the ideas. Like training people in person is better than online, but I also do it online. But eventually what I want to do is have like a training and and sort of ritual performing group that maybe travels around, because the work the work has not, it's like, on some level it's very difficult to explain the work, but it's actually quite easy to show the work.
Yes. Yes.
So it's like what I'm trying to get towards is an ensemble process that exemplifies what the work can do as like a community process, while also understanding that different people are going to use it in different ways for different purposes, because people have different lives and contexts and they're facilitators or something. But
Right.
the point is that everybody I've brought this through has really gained a lot of insights, because it frees up a lot of these blockages that we have gained from, that we've been forced into these oppressions, these colonization oppressions. There's an indigenous neuroscientist called Michael Yellowbird, and he writes about neuro decolonization.
Ooh.
And I really feel like I'm trying to do that too with my work, is that it's a kind of decolonization of perception itself. It's a
Yeah.
neuro decolonization. It's an ability to see in multiple vantage points at multiple times with no competition, because it's an integrated network of spirits who have different talents, and then they just come together and do this. So in the individual, it might look like, that neuro decolonization, but in a group field, it looks like something else. And I think that my invitation is that if people want to train in this, I'm open for training people in various ways to do this work, whether it's a group that wants to train or whether it's individuals. And I'm also doing drop-in online stuff so people can taste the work via the experiential practices. Eventually, my goal is to, like, the more support that I get, the more I can do with the work, essentially.
Right.
And that's my sort of own
Volunteer
process.
in.
Totally.
Yeah.
But I would love to travel and host workshops too, because like this stuff is really experiential. It's just very experiential, and people they have transformations. Even if in a little bits they have transformations.
I
It doesn't
mean,
even have to be a giant thing.
I experienced it myself, even just observing your class. It impacted me so greatly. In the same way that you couldn't put words to why
Yeah.
but to witness what was happening and the energies and to be present was impacting myself because I was participating.
Yeah.
I was in the container, and so I was impacted, and I didn't do anything. No one even saw my face, but
Yeah.
it was huge, and I didn't even know what to expect. But the
Yeah.
affinity I felt, my liver, my hun spirit was like,
Yeah.
I
Right.
want to, I
Right.
was attracted. I wanted, yeah, I wanted, or I guess that would be my post spirit was like, I want to,
Yeah. Well,
connect
yeah.
or be part of like resonance,
There's a
essentially.
resonance there, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really opening a container for those spirits to actually feel welcome, but in a particular way.
Yeah.
It's not just like do whatever you want. It's like, but there is an honesty that I have with understanding that everyone's coming with all of these various ghosts and spirits attached. So I know that. So I create the container and I have the chi to basically just structure that process of unfolding for people. Because a lot of people, they're scared of what they have inside them.
Probably
I mean, as
everybody, right?
rightfully so. I mean, we're all afraid of being exiled for who we are
It's a
and what we
human thing.
carry.
It's a innate, if you are separated from the tribe, that means you're gonna die. So I think that's
Totally.
in all of our genes.
And we're all experiencing that to some degree because we've become so divorced from collective ritual. So that we don't believe that what we have, or that what we're carrying, the burdens that we're carrying, we don't believe we will be accepted if we are honest about what that is. And so part of this death clown work is to slowly, gradually allow people to see each other's demons and ghosts, but in a very controlled way, so we all stop that bullshit.
Right.
Right? Like, and then when we see people possessed in real life, we have a much greater skill set.
Yes.
We might not be able to help those people, but at least we start to perceive them correctly,
Right.
which is part of compassion. Part
Right.
of compassion and empathy is actually perceiving correctly.
Yeah. You can't have
So,
compassion, like blind compassion and be ignorant. Like like
Doesn't
Tim
work.
Han, he was so compassionate, he was so legit, but he was so smart and in tune, and he fell in love and couldn't,
Yeah.
he had all the pain just like
Yeah.
anyone.
Yeah.
It wasn't like
Right.
just blindly like I'm just an angel.
No,
Like
you can't.
it's
Yeah,
not like
you can't just be. Yeah, you can't. You can't be sort of like everyone is complicit. Like we have to understand we're all complicit. So pretending we're somehow not affected or something, it just doesn't work because it's dishonest, and everyone can smell dishonesty and hypocrisy a mile away. So even I tell people, this is a funny little anecdote. It's like I tell people in the work, I say, I just want you to be honest. Go up there, go. You're on stage. You got 2 minutes. I want you to just be honest. I don't know what that's going to look like. You'll improvise. And a lot of people, some people get stuck because they don't know what honesty means. And I say, look, here's a trick. Be honest about how dishonest you are.
yeah.
You see, it's just
Or
it's very trickster clown. It's like I don't need you to tell me anything vulnerable. I don't need you to. That's not honesty.
right.
That's not honesty. Oh, no.
Let me
Honesty
be
is like,
vulnerable with you real quick. Like, okay.
right. That's like, no, that's weird. But
Yeah.
instead, instead I say, look, just be honest about your reluctance. Be honest about your dishonesty. Be honest about
Like
your
your
fear.
fear.
Be honest about how you're actually feeling. And that could even give you protection.
Yeah.
And
There,
people
because
have
you're
to feel
scared,
that.
right? Yeah, you're because that's the thing that really came up when you said that we all need to participate, essentially. We all need ritual, but because I'm so familiar with my generation and how like anxious and whatever
Uh-huh.
insecure, so
Yeah.
that's what's going to come up for everyone.
That's what's going to come
Like
up.
that they're interested, they're listening right now on their podcast and they're like, oh, I want to know more. But that means that you have to be seen, that you to participate in ritual is inherently with others, which means
Yeah.
inherently you cannot hide, which means it will be a risk and
Yes.
fear and all that.
Right.
So that is, the entrance,
Right.
like, but you
Right.
said it doesn't
And
need to be that way. You could
no,
just
and
feel
that's
about how it's scary.
yeah, and the point is that like it's baby steps towards bravery. It's not like part of it is just like, oh, you're feeling anxiety? Great. We have a method to understand how to use that energy and play that energy.
Yeah.
It's not about going, oh, I shouldn't feel anxious. Let me
Yeah.
tell you something. I've been performing for I don't know how long, more than 10 years. I don't fucking even remember. I still get nervous. I still get anxious.
Before
So
class, before death con class.
before class, before performance, before anything, the
Yeah.
point is that I know how to use it.
Uh,
I can play the energy of that instead of going, oh no, I'm anxious. That means no. It's like, oh, this energy is here. How do I use that energy in service to what I'm about to do?
so changing
That's
your
ritual.
voice when your voice quivers, when you're scared, that's like the
I
skills that
know how
you
to
have. You
use
can
it.
change the inflection to
I
make
can
people
change the
calm.
inflection. I can move the energy down or I can just go, okay, 30 seconds, let's be as anxious as possible. Fuck. Just like fuck. What am I doing? What am I doing? What am I doing? Oh my god,
Yeah.
fuck. But in that expression, the energy just changed. Like right now, I just was like, let's find the anxiety, let's bring it out, and let's exaggerate it for 10 seconds. And then everything changed. It's like the amazing thing is that a lot of these voices and spirits just want to be expressed and heard. They don't actually need to be this giant thing.
That's the thing. I even feel that way in my own life, like even in my job, like with the boss. It's like I don't need anything from you. I just need to be heard. And like, why is this so difficult? Like,
Yeah.
we don't need to do a task. We don't need to make a procedure. We
No,
don't,
no,
this was
no,
enough. But
no.
like, you not hopping off the Zoom call is all I needed. And that's what I have to fight for. Just like, please stay, please, like, don't leave.
I
Like,
mean, it's
'cause
so
I'm
crazy
like,
that yeah, it's so wild that like we have just been we have just been so abused. All of us have been so abused that we don't have the skills ready anymore. We're very afraid of what's going to happen to us. And part of what I'm trying to do with this work is to take all of that noise and put it in a sandbox and go, look, all these things are super real and it happens in our lives. But if we can play with them and in a kind of distant way, a little bit like artistic distance, we can create some artistic distance between ourselves and the energy or the feeling or whatever, or the narrative that's running through our head. All we do is a little bit of distance and play a little bit. And then suddenly we're like, oh, I have way more options than I thought I had. And that's actually what people really need, is they need to know that they have more options in any given moment than they thought they had. That's it. And once we can feel that, we're like, oh, if this person is asking something from me that I feel a little cringy about, instead of shutting that person down or running away, I can just go, pause. I'm going to be a little bit honest. I don't know where this is going. What do you want from me? You can ask those questions, but you're not you're not cutting, you're just going,
Protecting
hey,
yourself and putting a wall.
you're protecting, but it's protecting in a careful way of like, I also, like I have, like there's just a negotiation that can happen. And it doesn't mean that everyone gets their needs met all the time, but it does mean that we're at least able to start to have the conversation about relationality in general in a
Right.
way that's not so morbid. That's the post spirit, more a morbid, right?
Yeah. Like
Yeah,
Eeyore too, just like whoa, whoa, whoa. And
right.
we can be happy if we want, and we can
Yeah,
hold all of it if we can just
yeah,
have more agency than we do.
yeah. And the more that people do stuff like the magic circle or write poetry or stream of consciousness, stuff, anything that is freeing to the Han, once you feel that energy release in your system, then you'll know what I'm talking about. When you can feel, okay, I feel depressed. What's that feel like? Where is it? Okay. Then take it for 10 seconds and go, I want to feel the most depressed anyone has ever felt ever. And it's kind of goofy, right? It's a little stupid. But when you can do that, it's like a cartoon. It's like
Um,
suddenly you become like you're in a cartoon and you are like Eeyore and you're like, oh, blah, blah. But as you do that, the energy frees itself up.
uh,
And,
you
the,
embody.
the more traumatizing something is, the more steps you need to take in order to get there. But I'm just giving people like a really, it's like this is actually how quick it could be. Like it really could be as quick as like, oh, I feel this feeling. What's that feeling like? How do I play with that more in my body? Wow, I felt energy move. Like it could be like that. It's not like that all the time because we are dealing with a lot of oppression and a lot of abuse and stuff. But I mean, this is the kind of stuff that like it took, like therapy doesn't really talk about this stuff.
Yeah, it
You know
doesn't.
what I mean? Like
Somatic
it doesn't
therapy gets closest,
oh,
but
it gets close.
still don't name anything we're like naming.
Yeah, and it gets close and they talk about parts, but it's like, are
Right.
my ancestors really parts? Think about it. Think about how disrespectful that kind of shit is. And that's the
But
decolonial
but
part is
your
like,
hoe is a part, and your liver, your hun is a part, and
yeah,
your, you know,
yeah. But it's also its own holistic self. That's the other thing is like,
right. It's
we
not
have
a
to understand that like on an animistic interdependent level, yeah, all of us are parts of a collective, but each part of the collective is its own whole with
that's
other, it's like every mitochondria is its own whole. It can't be like, I mean, when you put it all together, it creates an amazing body. But I think that what we really need to understand is that like the diminishment of each other that we do to ourselves, we diminish a lot in this society.
mm,
And we just need to sort of understand it's colloquially we talk about parts, but accurately we need to talk about wholes and collectives because saying something is a part diminishes its wholeness. I mean, these are just parts of the philosophy that I've discovered over the years because things like IFS, internal family systems, which was stolen from indigenous Africans and turned into this remixed thing for white people,
yeah.
like
Couples
it's totally
therapy at 250.
decontextual.
an
it's
hour.
totally decontextualized, right? It's just super decontextualized. But they talk about parts, and now parts work has become really famous. But I just fear it's continuing to strengthen and feed the narcissism of capitalism and colonialism, because now all of a sudden there's parts that like it's just I just have really strong
Mhm.
cautions against how we use language sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
How
it's
we
all
use
about the
language is
foundation,
how.
right?
Yeah.
The words we use, where it comes from, the word nice means stupid. Call someone nice. Oh, you're so nice. It means you're an idiot. Like,
Yeah.
that's what it means.
Yeah.
So we got to know like where we're coming from. And so I hear what you're
Yeah.
saying about somatic therapy coming from a colonized place. Like we can't really work with it I mean, we can, but it's not ideal because
Yeah.
it's coming from a
We yeah,
wrong,
we can
wrong
see it
relation.
for we can see it for the attempts at healing it's trying to do. Like we can
Yeah.
really go, look, you're trying to come from a good place, you really do care about people, but then there's a kind of structural analysis that we have to deal with. We cannot divorce puritanical Protestantism from these things. We can't like say that it's not part of it, because if we look at history, we actually see how it evolves from these other traumas and oppressions, and we have to go, look, can we just admit that like there's probably some parts of this that are actually just not good for people
Mm.
because of how like we just have to understand, like there's so many things that we just have to look at them clearly,
Yeah.
like white feminism. Just as an example, it's like, look, we have to look at it clearly and see that it appears to be good on the surface, but you dig a little deeper and it's actually not that great for people. And I'm
Yeah.
not saying that you didn't get help from it at one point in your life or something. I'm just saying, from a more mature perspective, when we start to clear or decolonize our perceptions, we start to actually be able to look at things that we love with a critical eye and
Mm.
go, oh, I do love that, or I did get help from it, but I can see that it actually is used very poorly
Yeah.
over here, and it's hurting people. So we just have to also be able to see that with our practices. And
Yeah.
I
Second
think
wave
that
feminist, third wave feminist, like all the
yeah, we have to
lead.
look at, but we have to do that with everything. We have to look at that with traditional Chinese medicine. We have to look at that with everything, because as much as it's a benefit, there's always shadows lurking, and there's always agendas that we have to look at. And it's not saying throw the baby out the bathwater. That's stupid. It's just saying let's have a critical discourse about what the fuck is actually going on that affects our actual lives. Like, let's actually look at what is this holding up? What is it, who does this benefit and
Mm.
who does this burden? Like, what is that about? And if we don't have that part of our process really sharpened, then we are going to get into some fucked up biases. We're just going to like perpetuate some really gnarly biases. And the most marginalized people can't afford that. So we have to do the work as much as we can to sort of, help the people who need the most help. And sometimes that's you, sometimes that's me. But often it's not. Often it's some other folks who really need more help. And so we have to do that critical analysis. Anyway, I feel like that was like a bonus rant or something.
That was. I feel like this is going to be a two-part series, so this was the second part. Thanks for tuning
Okay.
into the second part. Pierre is amazing, and I know you all can recognize his skill, and that's really what is happening, is that he's honed this for so long. He's developed the skill, and that's what makes him someone we're going to give money to and we're going to support because he's doing something really powerful. And if you can recognize that, then I don't even need to be saying these words. I'll link all the stuff
Yeah,
in
we'll give my
or
link to my Substack and stuff
yeah.
because that's the easiest way for people to sort of just stay tuned is the Substack. And I do a lot of writing on there, and I also announce classes and stuff. And I'm also I'm also interested in collaborating if it works out and if the divination says yes. You know what I mean? Like if
Of
people want to
course.
collaborate, and then I'll do divination and we'll talk about it because I do think that like there's a lot of unexplored areas that we can really get into with the kind of embodied theatrical decolonial work, but also with various health practices, you know? Like I would love to do things where people get acupuncture and then do the class. You know what I mean? Like there's really great opportunities for really feeling the chi
Yeah.
when we're able to really not compete anymore. We're actually, it's complementary medicine, you know? That's what I'm interested in.
Yeah, I mean, the last thing I want to say is in yesterday when I interviewed Dr. Morris, when I asked him what he found, powerful in the community group acupuncture when people are all in a circle healing, like
Yeah,
he said the most akin energy he can describe that occurs there is like when people come together in a group to pray. And so
that's
that's
right.
essentially what you're saying. So it was just cool to have the
Yes. Yeah,
reaffirmation. We're talking about something
totally.
real here. It's
Yeah, it's real. It's really
like
real.
that's my science. It's like 2 days in a row, people affirm like we need to pray together in groups, but like in a non-religious way.
That's right. That's right. That's it.
So
It's kind of
that's
simple, but kind of crazy how it's like so crazy to think that like, yeah, but I mean, that's the work. And then I'm so happy that you're talking to folks and that we're all trying to join our knowledge into this bucket, you know? We're just like collectivism.
yes.
Let's
Yeah.
return to right relationship.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. I hope this was of benefit for you and all your relations. I really do. I enjoyed the talk. It's hard to get to be able to talk about these things so directly because I did mention things like possession that a lot of people have really sketched out about. I mean, rightfully so, but they are real phenomenon. So we have to be able to include them in our critical dialogue for sure.
Mhm. All right. Well, tune in for next week for more amazing talks. And yeah, hopefully this is transforming you all as you listen.
Great.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to today's Three Treasures Tea Talk.